Welcome to our podcast. You're listening to Okay by Ixon at www.ixonmusic.com. And tonight is part 2 of Should You Think Twice About Dating a Felon with our special guest, spiritual whistleblower. Welcome to Why Complain When You Can Whine, Making Sense of the Senseless. 3 professional women attempting to make sense of toxic nonsense while drinking wine, or actually whatever alcohol you prefer. I'm Dr. Jody Larman, licensed clinical psychologist in the state of California. Therefore, everything and anything that we discuss on this podcast is purely for psychoeducational or entertainment purposes only. And tonight, I am not drinking wine. I am drinking my Bailey's Colada again.
Ooh.
I feel like I need something harder. It is a limited edition tropical colada, and I added just a little bit of seltzer to it.
Ooh.
And I have to say, my earrings, my sister and my niece gave me earrings for my birthday, and they say, warning, the girls are drinking.
Love it.
That's what it says. It says, oh yeah, warning, the girls are drinking again. Add that again. Figure out how to put this back in a minute. And my friend gave me this when I first went on TikTok. She didn't know I was on TikTok, but she gave me this shirt and it says famous. So I thought, yeah, okay, I'll wear it. Because I am in my own mind. But yeah, so that's me tonight.
Okay.
Awesome. Hi, I'm Heather, licensed counselor in Denver, and I'm a domestic violence survivor, and I am drinking margaritas tonight, y'all. It's a strong one too. All my ice already melted, so.
So strong it melted the ice.
Yep, it'll be good. That's me. Your turn.
Hello, everyone. I'm Ashley Page, single mom, domestic violence survivor. Tonight, I found this in the store and it looked really good. It's called Docktails. Can't really explain. And it's a cucumber margarita.
Oh.
And it's local to Colorado. So I was like, hell yeah. Someone try it.
And back for part 2.
Yes. Hi, everyone. I'm the spiritual whistleblower, life coach, domestic violence advocate, victim advocate, and book author. And thank you for having me back. I'm so excited. And Heather and Ashley, be sure to plug your stuff because my supporters really want to, follow you guys and everything. So please, they really loved the last video. So yeah.
And because of that, also, should we say that you will be our returning special guest, open invitation, whenever you want to be here,
yes,
you just say the word.
I will always drop in because I think the work that you guys are doing, number one, is dangerous because I'm going to tell you something. I follow some kick-ass white girls on TikTok. I mean, listen, I'm very particular about the stuff that I follow, and I follow some excellent content creators that are against narc abuse. And I got 5 favorite white girls, not including you, Doc. And I'm gonna just tell you now, like, they're just like me. They're ready to fuck these motherfuckers up. Quality, amazing content. So, anything that you guys do, like, I back it because there's so many content creators that will not touch this stuff. They talk around it, but this is I want to get to the nitty gritty. I need to know how to identify these motherfuckers from a mile away. I don't want to interact with them when they're in my face, hi, hello. I need to see you from a mile away. So this information that you guys are giving to women is so vital. And anybody that's doing this type of work, I will back it 100%. And I'm very funny. I'm very particular. I just don't talk to anybody or whatever. So yes, I will drop in, pop in anytime, so
Good.
And I'm glad you let me drink and curse. That's a plus. Because if I can't curse, I'm not doing shit. I tell people this, I got to be fucking me.
Yes.
So yeah.
I don't know that I can
Four-letter
have
words
a
are a favorite.
full sentence without cussing half the time.
Ironically, you just did. What the
I
fuck,
know.
Jody?
But I was literally, I thought about it. I thought, no, this sentence is gonna come out with no curse words. Damn it.
No, my mouth is unfiltered. So I like that you guys give me the freedom to be me. So let's do it.
Let's do it. Let's do the damn thing.
Let's do it.
Part 2. Why we don't date criminals anymore.
Woo. Where do we leave off last time? Because it was we did an hour and a half. It was pretty good. It was jam-packed with stuff.
We get to drinking and it's like, where did we leave off?
We may repeat ourselves again, who knows, but I know that one of the, reading all the comments, and some people left some amazing comments, and I love that. But someone left a comment about if an inmate calls you from their own cell phone and you take the call, you're aiding and abetting the crime.
Oh, no. Oh.
Yeah. And that is not true. That's not true.
Nice.
One, if an inmate calls you, and I think we all know this. I think you probably know this too, Chantel. Alcohol already, right? That when an inmate calls from a prison or jail phone, you get a recording first that says an inmate from such and such and such institution is calling. Do you accept the call? Right. Now, if an inmate calls you and there is no introduction like that, they're on their own cell phone. They're not going through the prison. That doesn't mean that you should be like, drop your phone, like the inmate from last week that I said threw the phone across the cell. You don't need to hang up the phone or drop the phone or whatever, but just know that inmate, you kind of in a way are putting them in more jeopardy the longer you stay on the phone and talk to them. But it's still not, you're not going to be aiding and abetting them. Right. Crime.
No, I feel like that was an ignorant comment, but let's get to another ignorant comment. Let's start the episode like this. Because I know Chanel and I jumped right on this comment because we were both irritated by it.
I know
it's this one
says, the gaslighting.
What kills me is none of these women take responsibility for their poor decision making and want to play the victim like these guys are manipulating them from jail. You mess with criminals. What do you expect?
Yeah, that was a very cringe comment for sure. It was really victim blaming, and Chanel said gaslighty. And
I just said
ignorant
the shit. Yeah,
and I wrote to them, just check out the definition of victim blaming, because I feel like a lot of people who haven't been in this situation, it's really easy for them to be like, take some responsibility. Actually, by us coming up here openly discussing these things, we are taking responsibility. Like this happened, I fell for this was, and it was really frustrating for me because that's all we hear is like, well, if you know better, you should do better. Like, what do you expect? Like, you asked for this to happen, and all of these things. And it's just it's so frustrating for us because it is gaslighting. It is victim blaming. It's victim shaming. It's just repulsive.
And it honestly does nothing to solve the problem, because it's not just us who have encountered these people or been in relationships like this. There's millions and millions of women out there that are falling for bad boy types or former inmates or criminals or whoever on that list. And we're here to essentially normalize that experience for people who have been victimized by these guys and go, this isn't your fault. This is happening and this is how they operate. And it can happen to anybody, even the most educated of individuals. So that's why we're here. We're not here. And I didn't feel like we were having a pity party playing victim thing at all. So I really don't even know where she got that from, other than she just probably didn't actually watch The
Or
podcast.
projection. It could also be
Oh.
projection, because you're
Yeah.
also going to get similar people saying, if you've never been there, how can you guys discuss that? If you haven't been through it, you don't know. And
Mhm.
so you're damned if you do and damned if you don't. If you've never done it,
Right.
how can you talk about it? And if you have done it, oh my God, why have you done it? That's horrible. And the thing is, no matter what, former inmates that get out of prison or jail are not going to walk around and go, okay, bitch, I haven't changed. Come love me. No, they're going to be, because in prison, sadly, what they learn the best and the most in prison is how to manipulate even better than
Yep.
they
Yes.
did before.
Yeah.
So they're gonna, because what do they do in prison? Oh my God, they are always trying to manipulate, always.
Mhm.
So when they get out, it doesn't just change. They're just better at it, and they're better at convincing you. Man, I really did rehab in prison. I learned my lesson. And us as human beings would like to hope that they did.
Because
again,
most human beings actually can like get
Yes.
something out of treatment and change, right? But
Yeah.
we're talking about people really like, whoa, there's like a bug in my house. We're talking about like people,
Much
we're
margarita.
talking about the people that are least likely to change, right? Narcissists, sociopaths, people that are like the king manipulators. And this is the only way they know how to get their needs met, is by manipulating. They learned it young and they've been doing it their whole lives. And it's worked so well for them that they've actually had no reason to change. So that's the thing.
They
not
fine-tuned it. They
Mhm.
fine-tuned it.
Yes.
Yeah, they fine-tuned it. And there's always going to be a new victim, a new target, a new vulnerable person out there that's going to fall for their shit. So why change? It continues to work for them. I always say it, people don't change unless what they're doing stops working for them.
Mhm.
And I just want to add this too with the gaslighting, because it's damn it, like Doc said, damn if you do, damn if you don't. So, the thing about women, nobody taught us how to vet narcissists. This is way before social media, and most of us have a narcissistic parent. And that's why, we attracted the narc, because we normalized that behavior in childhood and it transferred it, into our romantic relationship. So the gaslighting will, if we were to say, hey, I'm accountable, you know what, you're right, I should have known better, but now I'm going to take this information and help other women, they're going to get pissed when you're out here helping women. Then they're going to try to fucking ban your page.
Mhm.
Okay. I know too many women that are truth tellers that are putting this info out, especially on TikTok. Few of them have gotten their pages taken down. These people, these trolls will band together to shut you down. So it's like, damn if you do, damn if you fucking don't.
And what's really interesting about that too is a lot of them become flying monkeys, and they start defending the sociopath, the cluster B, the whatever. And he's not a bad guy, it's you. And it's like, do you not see how you are falling right into the trap that you're blaming the victim for falling into? We have seen that happen several times, where it's like, but he's not doing it to me. And it's like,
Oh my God.
Yes, he is.
Because he's using you right now. When he's done using you, he's going to throw you underneath the fucking bus.
Yeah.
Well, and
that's not going to happen to me. Sorry.
Well, and the thing that a lot of people don't understand is that and I said this in one of my videos, it's not like they show up, just like what Jody said. It's not like my ex, my daughter's father, showed up and said, hey, baby, I'm going to beat you to high hell, ruin your life, and destroy everything you have and everything you are and everything you want to be. They show up always like the devil always shows up looking like an answered prayer. The end.
Yes.
And if they don't show up looking like an answered prayer, they show up looking like a misunderstood victim.
Broken winged boys.
Yeah. And they play on our empathy, like, well, yes, I do have a very broken, past. And yes, I did go to prison for this, but it was because my mother was this, my father was this. and
I was too high to know what I was doing. I wasn't in my right mind. I was drunk. I didn't know
Yes.
better.
I was in a gang. I'm not in a gang anymore. That was all in the past.
yeah.
I'm no longer in a gang. That is not what I do. I've changed my ways. Yeah, they did. Because they're not doing it in the gang. They're doing it to you.
Yeah. Well, and we haven't, like Chanel, like you said, no one taught us how to identify pseudo accountability.
That's
Like,
the word I was going to use next.
No one taught us how to use that. No one taught us how to identify when people are, taking accountability for their actions, but they're really just dismissing the problem and like pacifying us in order to manipulate us and get us to play on, their little mischievous gaslighting so that they can hook, line, and sinker us. It's just the truth.
Yeah.
But the interesting thing is once you do know, and this is why, listen, people, we're not victim blaming. We're not claiming to be victims. Oh, poor me. Listen, because they will, now that you know this, they will say something like pseudo accountability, like, well, I came from a broken home. It's always other people. It's my mom or my dad or the streets, or it's never, yeah, I did this.
My exes, my baby mamas.
And initially, for most people, it's like, yeah, okay. But for them, they're telling you, we don't know this. And now hopefully you do know what pseudo accountability is. When someone is sitting there telling you about their whole poor, pitiful me story and how they've changed, but yet they never say, I have changed because I did this and I did that. But they'll say, but the reason I'm like this is because of everybody else. They made a choice. Sorry.
No,
they made a choice.
So the trick is, I learned, is to listen for like minimizing of things, where they make things that are actually a big deal much smaller. And when they tell you that they are sorry, but they don't really know what they're apologizing for, they just make blanket statement apologies, like, I'm sorry for everything. I'm sorry for I hurt you. I'm sorry for the horrible ways I made you feel. Like, it's all like for show, but it never actually identifies the behavior that they did wrong. My ex was so great at externalizing blame, like Jody was saying too. Blame is everywhere but on him. It's the world's fault that he's this way and not his. And I also love, because once you sort of like gray rot, I did this, my ex and my final conversation was when he called me from jail and was playing this game with me, but I had already like figured it out. And I was like, I kind of waited for him to do his spiel. And then they always ask you for something, right? Like, or they always turn something around and say, like, he was always ready to ask me for money or ask me for something back, or to turn things around and say, but what about all the things you did wrong? And then start listing all of the things that I've done that may or like were meaningless, had nothing to do with the situation, and that I weren't actually wrong, but we're all in reaction to him abusing me. And so I was like, so pay attention to those things, because it's like it feels like you're being manipulated still if you kind of sit with it and don't listen to just the pretty words and watch like how they are maneuvering around actual taking accountability for their shit. So yeah.
And there are some guys, like I think it was one of you said that they will actually rehab. They will actually change who they are and their behaviors and stuff, that will learn. There were guys, they were my favorite inmates to work with because they were working the program, not just going through the motions. Like, I had guys come to me, and when I was in the more severely enhanced outpatient, we got like 15 minutes. And so it was more of a check-in. And then in the triple CMS, where that was the lesser severe before general population, you know, I had some guys say, well, what am I, you know, supposed to do? And I said, look, you can do therapy. We can talk. We can actually work on your issues. And like, really? We can? And I'm like, that's why you're in mental health. So I had some guys that actually took advantage of it. I mean, I had a guy who was he was Hispanic, very machismo. Women are shit, men are great. And he had so little respect for women. And he said, you know what? I want to talk about that. And we sat for week after week after week, and he wrote a journal and we talked, and he finally, you know, said one day, and he goes, wow, I don't like that the way that I was. That's like wrong. And I realized I grew up in a family where that was machismo, and in a culture that was machismo. And he goes, and he was in for life. So he had nothing to, you know, change for, if you will. But he's like, wow, he goes, if I ever do get the chance to get out, it's going to be different. It's going to be different. And I believe him because he was working the program and he was doing really good in his work job. He was doing good in his building. He was doing good all around. So there are people that do want to change. I would say in prison, there are so many gangs. I mean, there's just gangs just like out on the street. And when guys go in really young, they have to prove themselves. So you will get guys that in their first 5 years have been, and they're like 19, 20, 21, they got in fights, they got time added to their sentence, they maxed out, they were in solitary, they were in the shoe, they just were trouble after trouble after trouble. And after about 10 years of that, so now they're only 29, they're still not old, they're like, I'm done, I'm tired, I don't want to do this anymore. So guys would change in one of two ways, only one of two ways. They stop doing what they were doing in one of two ways. One is they die. That's how they stop. Or they get just too old and tired. And old and tired doesn't mean 60, 70, 80. Old and tired can be 29 years old because you've been doing it for 20 years. So it just depended. But when there were guys, and you could tell and you can see when they were done and they wanted something different, and they would come and say, I'm just done, I'm tired. And they start hanging out by themselves or with the group that's in education or whatever. So it is possible to rehab and change. And I had, I guess, the vantage point of knowing which guys really were and knowing which guys were on their fourth or fifth girl writing, sending money on their books.
But that's the thing, because I'm the same way, right? Like I could see clients making actual changes and know the difference between when I'm being fucking fucked with and when they're actually taking the program seriously and doing the work to change. I can know that as a professional in a professional relationship, in an intimate relationship that's been, you know, you've been sexually active with this person. You've had all the hormones going and all the chemicals and things and happenings and that kind of bond and that kind of attachment to a person is so much different than being in a professional therapist role. So it's like we could, like Jody and I could, you know, have blamed and shamed ourselves for, you know, falling for bullshit in our intimate relationships, but in our professional world, we can see bullshit coming from a mile away. And so I think that's why it's so easy for people to victim blame, because they think, okay, from an outside perspective, I would never ever, but you actually don't fucking know until you've done it, until you've been in it. So it's real easy to like cast negative judgment and think that you know all the answers from a distance, or to see things more clearly when you're not emotionally invested, you know? So I mean, I get it. I can empathize with being like, God damn, you dumb bitch, you know, like, what were you thinking? You know, like, hello, I can empathize with that ignorance, because I think we've all kind of had that ignorance once or twice before, where we're just like, slap shit out of these people for not, you know, but at the same time, you got to understand that relationship dynamics are far more fucking complicated than just sitting here and pointing fingers and saying, I know what's best. So
I try to liken it to, if you ever watch, for example, football, when we are Monday morning quarterbacking, we can see from above and we're like, why the hell did he throw to that guy when that guy over there was open? And we'll get all upset. Why? And he's an idiot. But when you're in it, you don't see it the same way. You're muddled by everything that's going on. So there's a big difference between being on the outside and judging and being in it, in the middle of it all. So victim blaming is like that. Oh, no. If people are going to victim blame, they should really take a good look at themselves and wonder, are you projecting? Is that why you're victim blaming?
Helping. It's not helping. Like if you've been doing it, if you've been victim blaming long enough and you're noticing that there's still a problem, how are you not seeing that what you're doing isn't helping? If you want to be helpful, get in there with people, educate yourself, and start talking.
But also look at your own life.
And look at your own shit.
Because a lot of people that victim blame are doing the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
But they're just hiding it very well.
Mm-hmm. They're running from it.
So Chanel, I know that you came with some questions.
I was just gonna say that.
I want to know, girl. Let's go.
I want to talk about like the transitional part when they're coming out, because I can just share a few things that were red flaggish for me with my ex. The term, I saw another girl, a lot of women talk about it on TikTok, but it's called world building. World building when they have to step on and use as many women as possible to build themselves up when they're coming out. So one of the things that, you know, I overlooked, and I look back, like my ex was very pushy about the HIV testing. Like when we would talk about sex, before we started having sex, he was like, you want to see my results? I'll show you my results. I'm like, chill out. Like, why are you so pushy about HIV testing? I didn't ask you. So I didn't know then, but I think that's his way of admitting that he's been with a man and he's trying to prove to me, hey, I'm clean. You can sleep with me. I'm protected. So I want to talk about the signs. Women need to really stop being gullible with these felons. When they come out, they really need to be on their own, building their own lives up. They need to be in therapy because they're institutionalized. And I don't say that in a bad way, but most of them come out and the agenda is, let me find a good girl, lay up on her, use her up. And then, you know, because a lot of them are severely insecure. They sat back and they're watching their peers and people they grew up with blow past them, good jobs, have everything. So they want to become overnight success as soon as they come out. So it's like, how can I climb to the top, you know, and get money? Yeah, I'm gonna use a woman to get there, and then I'm gonna dump her and go impress another woman or whatever. So I want to talk about world building, like what women need to look out for to avoid getting used when they come out of prison.
I don't think it's just coming out of prison, because I know a lot of inmates that will have multiple girlfriends putting money on their book while they're in prison. So then when they get out, they got to be with all those girls or they got to drop them. Yeah. One or the other. So if it was just to get money on the books, then they don't want them anymore and they want to find someone to replace them with that's going to help them on the outside. See, there's two different things. You can help me on the inside, but I don't need you outside. And then you can help me on the outside. I didn't need you on the inside. Right. So, because they will have, you know, part of it on the inside too is I have seen, sadly, the visitors, which oftentimes it's their wife. I've seen it with the mothers. I've seen it with the girlfriends, bringing in contraband for them and getting caught and then getting a felony count themselves. That's happened more times than you. Yeah.
Well, and I feel like I want to go back to Chanel's question, because women who are with or start dating a man who's already in prison, I feel like that's a different conversation because they're going knowing, like they go into this knowing I'm on a dating app. He's an inmate. He's in prison right now. It's a different level of awareness. But a woman who's just living her best life and she meets a man at the bar. This happened to me. I was dancing. I was just having a great time at the club with my girlfriends. And this beautiful man comes and literally sweeps my feet off the floor on the dance floor, lifts me up, starts spinning me. We have this amazing time. We start talking and like sparks, chemistry, everything. He's out. He's in the free world. And then I got to know him. And then, oh, he just got out of prison. Like after I already had experienced this connection with him. So I think going back to Chanel's original question, I think one of the first things from my perspective that you need to be aware of is a man that is quality to date and really has done the work. Not only do they do the work in prison, like Jody was talking about,
Right.
but they also understand that there's a period of acclimation coming out into society. And they understand that, listen, I can't with you right now because I just got released from prison or jail and I have to work on myself. I need to get a job. I've got to get an apartment. I have to stay up with my parole officer, my probation officer. I'm doing these tests. I've got to acclimate. That's a man who's like serious about their fucking healing. Because they can't be bothered with your bullshit. No offense, because they're healing. You can't disrupt this because I'm liable to find myself and my ass back in prison or find myself in trouble. But a man who's like really quick to get with you, he's not interested in healing. He's interested in finding a mama.
Mm-hmm. A backup mama.
Yeah.
And do you see how quickly that attachment happened? Like they come in like that. They come in with all this charisma and all this charm and all this like and chemicals and happy things are happening in your brain. So you don't even have time to be like, what are you doing with your fucking life right now? Because they find just the most opportunistic kind of thing, like places to find women, vulnerabilities about them. If they're drinking at a bar, especially, they love that. And then they'll just swoop in like they're some fucking angel of darkness. And you just like fall for them. And then 2 weeks later, you find out they're meth head. Or 4 weeks later, you find out this, that, and the other thing. And then 4 months later, you find out they have herpes or whatever. Like all of that fucking shit doesn't happen until after you've already been like sucked in by their nonsense. So being aware, like, they're not going to tell you they just got out of prison, but be aware of people who's like overly charismatic, superficially charming kind of presence gets you kind of high. Because when you're having like an immediate chemical reaction to somebody and you have a history of being attracted to bad boys, then you should probably just like chill your tits and just like take a step back and know that what's happening might, who knows, you might, these like fantasy sparks that people think happen in the beginnings of like long-term stable relationships do not happen in the beginning of toxic, heavy feeling, relationships, So that's hopefully that kind of answers your question too, Chanel.
I want to say too, just building things off of my experience too, behind every toxic felon that doesn't want to change, doesn't want to work on himself, he comes out using and abusing, always look at the family, because they're the ones that raised him and conditioned and groomed him. And then they'll sit up and play victim like, we don't know why he turned out this way, especially the mother. We don't know. We didn't raise him that way. The family, 9 times out of 10, is helping him to manipulate and break you down. Do not listen. I don't care if they go to church. I don't care if they have decent jobs. They have poor morals. Their standards are in the fucking gutter. They raised the piece of shit to go out here. The mother will even help him cheat. The mother, if he puts his hands on you, his mother will cover up and defend her son.
Yes.
In my case, I tried to get a restraining order because he stalked me. When I caught him cheating, my cell phone was changed the next day. I was out of there, moved out, everything. He's still calling me at my job. And I'm avoiding him like the plague and reporting him to his PO. Like, he keeps calling me. The PO says, go to the police, get a restraining order. This is South Carolina. So the South, is pro-man. You got to be damn near dead to be in a ditch for them to take you serious in the South, especially South Carolina. Court comes, it's the court date, and they say, bring as much evidence with you, right? I'm the victim. So my evidence is the whole text message thread between me and his PO. Every time he would contact me and I didn't want contact and I would avoid him, I would turn it over to his PO. So she was aware of him contacting me. She's the one that told me to file for the restraining order. So I saved everything. I have her business card, everything. So I get to court. This is my evidence. The judge refuses to look at my evidence. But he brings his raggedy mother to court and she sits there as his witness. Yeah, she's a terrible person. We're scared of her. She stalks us. We're fearful for our lives. She sat there and helped him lie to stop me from getting my restraining order. Yep. So what I want to tell women, like, while he's being charming, he might pull you in to meet the family. Just know the family is in on it. The family is helping him to break you down. Mm-hmm. If you're any type of good girl with good, self-respecting woman, the goal is to break you down to the low level of the women. And the women in the family are trash, I promise you. The way his mama's weak is it's the mama set a very low standard of how he perceives all women. Yep. So his goal is to bring you down to his mama's level. Mm-hmm. And she's two-faced, passive-aggressive, narcissistic. She's going to play both sides of the fence. Yeah, my son is toxic, blah, 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 try to get close to you, but then she's going to betray you and tell her son everything and help her son come again. I've been through all of that. So don't get caught up with the family. Don't.
Here's something to know about, because you mentioned being in a bar a lot, depending on what their crime was. A lot of their parole and probation report will say that they cannot be around alcohol and they cannot be around drugs. That doesn't mean that they're not going to be in a bar, but a lot of guys have, at least in California, have that stipulation on their parole papers that they are not supposed to be around or consuming alcohol or drugs or
my ex broke all of that. He went out of state and everything. He broke everything.
Yeah, they don't give a fuck what they're supposed to be doing.
They don't.
They're criminals.
Especially like in cases of my ex who has BPD and ASPD.
Mine too.
It's like I believe I said this last time on the last episode is, like I have several voicemails sitting in my phone right now of him calling me and brutally describing my death to me on how he was going to kill me, where he was going to kill me, like how he was going to torture me before he killed me. Like and he left a voicemail, several of them. They don't give a fuck what the court says. They don't. Because they're above it. He's like, I don't give a fuck. What's your restraining order mean to me when you're dead? Nothing, Ashley. It's a piece of paper.
I think I've got 5 protection order violation convictions.
I have no I think I'd have to go back and check, but I think that he's violated his restraining order 4 times.
Mm-hmm. Doesn't he have warrants out for one now? Doesn't he active warrants for violating protection orders?
For how many times he's violated it since he's been released a year ago.
And see, something like that message, that's a criminal threat. That should
that's a terroristic threat, right?
Yeah. They use that one as a confession to premeditated murder. Was what they.
That's a terroristic threat.
Mm-hmm.
He should have been charged for
they
that.
Put him in community corrections. It's fine. He's eligible for ComCore.
This is the thing, though. Yeah, I mean, this is the thing, though, that's so frustrating for victims is that he had child abuse charges. He had premeditated murder because he confessed, or he like confessed to my murder in the voicemail, like all the things. And then what they do is that they start, with me at least, they start dropping all these charges in the litigation process. Oh, well, in order for us to get this felony, we're going to have to drop these 3 over here. And in order to push for this, we're going to have to get pushed. Like, we're going to have to get rid of that.
Mm-hmm.
And so
game of chess.
And so the thing is like, before you know it, initially you're the prize to be won with this man. And then at the end of it, you're just another victim on his list.
Mm-hmm.
I want to ask you ladies too, if you experience this. I mean, it is triangulation, but like they recycle women from their past, and they're like, these women are toxic, and they'll help them like stalk and harass the new woman. It's like they use the good girl as a piece of bait. And I use, like, I demonstrated in the past, like I used a picture, an example of a fisherman holding a pole. And you know, you put the worm on the hook. I said, he'll use you, you're the worm. And he'll use you to attract low-level narcissistic women. Like these women love taking men. So I want to ask you guys, have you ever been used as baits because of your high standards, your good look, your quality? You're the total opposite of the women he's accustomed to dealing with. He'll use you as baits to lure in more of these narcissistic women. They don't care if he's in a relationship. They'll still sleep with him.
Yeah. So my ex, like I knew him 20 years ago. I think I've talked about it before. And then he came back into my life and we hooked up or whatever. So like, I definitely was way out of his league, first of all. And definitely way above him in terms of education and having my shit together and just like in life in general on a whole other level than he was. But I'm also a very like compassionate and empathic person who works in criminal justice. So it was like, it was still easy for me to connect with him on other levels. And we had a history together, but he would cheat on me with like volatile, disgusting women. And then the last one, when he went to jail for assaulting me, he had already moved in with the woman he's with now, if you would like to call her that. And she's legally blind and a meth addict and looks about 60 years old, even though she's my age, and a fucking sociopath. Like, not even just like a narcissistic bitch of a woman. She's just as fucking awful as he is. Like
those are the types they settle with, though. They end up settling with those types.
He took that when he met her as like this huge opportunity to become her caregiver, and the state fucking pays this motherfucker money to be this woman's caregiver so he doesn't have to work and she doesn't work because she's on disability, and he can just leech off of her and her disability benefits and free fucking housing. And so
she gets to claim him as her man, and she feels validated with her low self-esteem.
Yes. And like she posts it online that with his last name, like they're common law married and they call each other husband and wife, even though he will never ever like legally marry a woman because he wouldn't. He doesn't want to lose anything that he can actually get. It's just somebody else. So like he calls everyone his wife. It's not a flex, bitch. And so he called me his wife. He called anyone. It's the way of him, his way of claiming everyone as property is what it is.
Right.
He actually value marriage or commitment or anything. But she puts it on Facebook like it's some big flex, and then stalks me on Facebook. Has been stalking me the whole time. And at the same time though, I was like, this fucking bitch is such a fucking, she's disabled, she's a meth addict. Like I at first had like a lot of empathy for her, or at least felt pity for her, and was like, he really picked a perfect target for what a sociopath he is. So in my first victim impact statement out of like 3 or 4 or 5 or however many fucking victim impact statements I wrote during that year of multiple cases that I was going through with him, the first one I ever wrote was like 3 pages long because it was just like, oh my God, he's like, I was such a fucking wreck after this whole thing ended and started. He in the victim impact statement, I wrote that she was his next target, that she was in just as much danger as I was from him, and that she was super vulnerable. And less than 2 months later, he assaulted her and went to jail. So
tell you.
But they're still together, right?
They're still together,
right?
And she'll
toxic
hang on to that for
codependence
as long as he sticks around, because he paroled to her house. So he's gonna leech off of her until he's off parole and off his probation or whatever, and then he's gonna be on to the next. So or
he's gonna be back stalking you.
Oh, if he is making money off of her, he's probably not going to be on to the next. He's probably going to have her with the next, because he ain't going to give up his income unless he's got a better income with the next.
Right.
And can we talk about the incestuous kind of aspects to the family shit too, Chanel?
Like, the incest is off the hook.
It's fucking disgusting. He had sex with his own stepmother. He tried to have sex with his adopted mother. He tried to have a threesome with the disabled chick and his half sister.
And children. They're nasty around kids too.
Fucking thank God he doesn't have children. Thank God, because he's this close to being a sex offender. He's disgusting.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I have a good one here before I forget. Porn addiction. I know they have several addictions, but I wanted to talk about porn addiction because what I noticed, mine was addicted to porn. And what I started learning and researching is that porn desensitizes them. So like when we were having sex, I noticed like he would handle me like a man, like there was no intimacy or no, like, it was like he just didn't know how to deal or touch a woman. He was, to me, I thought he was desensitized to the act. Well, so I don't know, Doc, if you can, speak more to this, like what does porn addiction, I know they majority of them have it coming out. What does it do to them? Like, does it numb them to the aspect of like, they're not attracted to women sexually, but they will use us sexually, I don't know, to dump on us and to control us.
Well, Ashley, you were going to say something. So say what you were going to respond and then I'll.
Well, I know with my ex, he really liked women. He loves women. But I know that the other aspect that I think would be beneficial to talk about is that they actually enjoy using sex as a form of punishment.
Yes, I agree.
And it can be very difficult for me to talk about, but a lot of women don't realize that you can be raped inside of a relationship.
Yeah.
And he used to rape me all the time. Like if I did something wrong, he was like, come here, it's time for your punishment. And I'd be like, no. And he'd be like, I don't care. I'm going to teach you a lesson. And it would be very much the way it is inside of prison, where it was the way that he would do it was it removed all pleasure. It was only pain. And it was, I'm here to teach you a lesson. Don't you ever do this to me again, because I will humiliate you. Even if it's just you and I will completely humiliate you. I will cause you to not like this. And if you do this again, it will be worse next time. And I think that a lot of women are ashamed to talk about that aspect because we gaslight ourselves into thinking like there's no way that if he's my man, he can't be sexually assaulting me because we're inside of a relationship, because a society likes to gaslight women and saying, how dare you withhold anything from your man, your husband, your partner, whomever, and taking and removing our ability to have our autonomy and our consent, even within the confines of a romantic relationship. So he was more like that with me. He was also highly addicted to pornography.
My ex was.
So, okay, remember this. I think I said this on the last one, where in prison, sex is also used as punishment. Sex is used as power, control, coercion, and all of that. And so, and that's what rape is on the street. Rape isn't about sex. It's about power and control and coercion. So it's, I'm not gonna say it's easy for men. I don't mean it that way, that it's easy for men to be addicted to porn and use it as power and all that. But if you think about in prison, it's used as power. In pornography, it's not exactly about intimacy. It's not about love. It's not about passion. It's about fucking and pulling hair and whatever they do in pornography. So we're looking at, we being inmates, we're looking at this, and this is also how we are being treated. This is also what we know: power, control, coercion. So yeah, when they get out, they don't really have, and I'm not empathizing with them, but on the one hand, they don't have this role model of treating women with empathy and intimacy and love. It's all about, I saw this on porn. This is how I was treated. This is what sex is. This is how it continues to be. So even before they went into prison, I highly doubt that they were compassionate lovers who gave to their partner.
They don't bond with people like that.
Right.
No. I have a good one too, real quick. I'm trying to remember as much as I can. One of the things that happened to me, I noticed my ex was very sadistic. If I was resting or sleeping, you know, they like to do sleep deprivation, which I find is a form of abuse. Arguing, waking you up out of your sleep, accusing you of cheating, punishing you with sex, waking you up out of your sleep to have sex. Watching
that stuff
you
happens
sleep,
in prison, because that stuff happens in prison.
watching you sleep, taking pictures with their cell phones of you sleeping, very intrusive. To me, it's demonic. I don't want nobody like hovering over me while I'm sleeping and just watching me and getting off on it. So a lot of women have told me, like, while they were sleeping, weird stuff like that happened. And I said, did they learn that in prison, or what are they doing to each other in prison?
It's
You
coercive control.
Yeah.
And it's abuse to cause people to lose sleep. I lost so much motherfucking sleep in my relationship with that man. He would record me like snoring so that he could like play it for me the next day and tell me. And then he was also using meth a lot, unfortunately. And so he was awake anyway, and I have a full-time job and work for a living, and so I would be trying to sleep and he would be up all night fucking around in my house, or he'd leave in the middle of the night to go cheat on me forever, and then I'd wake up in the middle of the night, he'd be gone. He'd like pretend to go to sleep, and then I'd wake up and then he'd be gone. And so it just got to the point where I was automatically waking up knowing that he was just gone, and not knowing where he was, and then he would ignore me all night and the next day, and then or send me pictures pretending to be someplace or turn his phone off or whatever. But he would wake me up and like accuse me of the dumbest shit, or just like make a bunch of noise and then pretend that he didn't mean to wake me up, and then try to keep me up to like whatever, have sex with me or whatever he wanted to use me for in that moment. I lost so much sleep in that relationship. One thing that I am so happy to have back in my life is sleep. I can't even tell you.
See, remember, these things, depending on how long they've been in prison. Now, a year, not. But when
20 years.
Okay, when you're talking 10, 15, 20 years, this stuff doesn't just appear when they get out of prison. This is the stuff that it's been going on in prison, been going on in California. It's 2 men to a cell, unless when you're in level 3 and level 4, it's usually cells, 2 men in a cell. We do not have enough room for single cells where they get to be by themselves. Some guys are, most are not. 2 in a cell. Then when you're in like level 1, level 2, you're in a dormitory. So you have a bunch of guys there. So it happens whether you're in a cell with one other guy or in a room with 10 other guys. This stuff didn't just happen when they got on the bus to leave and found you. They didn't just suddenly come up with this. This is what they've been living with for 20 years. And it's a hard habit to break. And to also, a great deal of them, sadly, have little regard for women.
No, none. And in fact, like I know with my ex, it was, we're not human beings, we're property and we're objects. And like, not only did I don't know this about like anyone else, but I know that not only did I lose a significant amount of sleep, but I also had to develop and adapt a coping skill of a disassociation with time. So like, because he would lock me in a closet or the garage, like, and I would have to learn how to distance myself from time. So like, I don't know if it makes sense. Like he would go to parties and he would barricade my car, because it was always my car. He never had a car. He would barricade my car in between places and he'd be like, you're not allowed to come in. And he would just leave me there for hours. And I would have to completely disassociate myself with any sense of time, or he would leave me, take off with my car, and he would leave me for days locked inside our house, and I wasn't able to go anywhere. So I'd have to learn how to like not have any like concept of time. And so like once I started healing, I was like, why am I late to everything? Why do I just like days off and like dissociate and just stare at the wall for hours? Because I had no fucking concept of time. I had to relearn time and scheduling and things like that, because with the abuse, it was always like, if I didn't learn how to dissociate, then I would have gone fucking mad.
Ashley, I just know that people are going to listen to that and say in the comments, why didn't you just leave?
It's called a trauma bond already.
Well, it's not only called a trauma bond, but when you're in a relationship, the way that I was in a relationship, you leave, you die, bitch.
Right. Yeah.
That's the thing.
Irritated her inside.
There was nowhere, like there were.
People are going to comment that.
I'll give you a really good example. The first time he broke one of my bones, his friend was there and he picked me up by my neck and threw me down a flight of stairs. And then he walked down the flight of stairs. I'll never forget how calmly he walked down the flight of stairs and walked and picked me up by my hair. And he said, you better not fucking cry or scream, because I will throw you down the next flight of stairs. And he walked me down to the parking garage in the middle of January. It was below zero, and opened the garage door, threw me into the garage and said, don't you dare fucking come out of this garage, and left me there. I had a broken elbow, a dislocated shoulder, a fractured collarbone, and left me in there to sleep. And if I left, or if I tried to get back into our house, I was going to fucking die. And by the time you realize I have to get out of this, you understand that either I die trying to get out of this, or I stay and I die. That's my only fucking options. And so for anyone who thinks like, why don't you just fucking leave? That's why you don't just fucking leave.
And this is a perfect segue for me. Mine had to get me to relocate from one state. And this is the thing, ladies, never move in with a man. I don't care if he's a felon or not. Just don't do it. Don't move miles, across country to be with a man, because the moment that I got on his turf and I was isolated from my support system, he and his family, it was just a gang attempt. So, if you're in a situation where you're isolated, he's going to get you, and he's going to put the fear of God in you. You're going to be trapped. If he put his hands on you, which mine did, I mean, it was very traumatic. Then I got raped on top of it in the relationship, so you can't just up and leave. You know, these men will put you in a position where, you know, it's too risky to leave. You got to sneak and plan an exit strategy. You got to get your money up. Like, it's so much that comes with trying to leave an abuser, and it's dangerous.
Yeah, absolutely could kill you. So
Yeah.
people who don't take that seriously infuriate me.
It
Do
takes
not move.
in a domestic violent relationship, not even with somebody that's been in prison, but in a domestic violent relationship, it takes an average of 7 times of leaving and going back before the person finally leaves. That includes dying.
Yep.
So the finality is 7 times, and that includes dying. Now, add in that little wonderful piece of a felony. You're with a felon, it's even harder.
Yes.
Because you know what these guys are now capable of. Sadly, you find out afterwards. They didn't come up and say, "Hi, I'm so-and-so. I just served 10 years for murder." Yay. No, you learn this when you are already trapped.
And they do it fast. They work very fast.
Yes.
They don't fuck around. They don't
Yeah.
take it slow. And that's the other thing to be aware of. If people are trying to move fast on you, they're manipulating you.
Red flag. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, even, you know, like I just started talking to a man a few weeks ago. Actually, when Heather came to visit me, she was in town when I first when I got the first phone call from him, and we're not anywhere. There's been no commitment. We're just getting to know each other. And that's the one thing that I've learned is when you're dealing with men like what we're talking about right now, they want you to commit immediately.
Yes.
Immediately. Like us, like all of these things, because they understand one thing. They're on a time crunch. Like, I can't hold this mask forever.
Right.
Like, I need you to commit before you find out who I am.
And I have other women that I need to be grooming as well.
Exactly.
Time is of the essence.
Yes. It's very much like, and they also utilize your insecurities and your fear of missing out. They utilize rejection in order to put pressure on you in order to commit very quickly. And it's not until after you've committed that you start finding out these things. I believe it was Jody that was saying that earlier, is you're not going to find out the information you need from them until after you've already committed.
Mm-hmm.
And I just totally lost my train of thought.
It's all right, girl. It's all right.
It's that time.
But, you know, also when you're talking about somebody who has a history, I'm going to say the only time that these men listen to you and are hearing what you're saying is when they first meet you, because they're getting the information from you that they are now going to use to reel you in and then turn against you. So that is, you know, we sit there and we're like, wow, he's actually listening to me. He's actually hearing what I'm saying. Oh my God. Yeah, I'm not saying that men don't listen. Well, yeah, I kind of am. Men don't listen. But these men, this is like the only time that they are really actively listening. And they're not actively listening to you because they care. They're actively listening to you because they're listening to what they can use to reel you in and keep you there. Because after they reel you in, your vulnerabilities, your trauma, your anything is now being weaponized against you. So don't you dare fucking leave. Because I know now all about you. All about
And
you.
they're vengeful too. Like, yeah, I don't know about you guys, but like once I got out the relationship and I started reflecting, I'm like, oh my God, I missed that red flag. I missed that red flag. I missed that red flag. And what really shook me up is like, if you escape, these guys have a vengeance. Like mine did 20 years. I remember talking to him at the 10-year mark and it was brief. I didn't send money. It was just a hi, how you doing? And then I disappeared. and I didn't see him for another 10 years. So I'm thinking like, did he seek revenge on me because I didn't give him money? I didn't give him the time of day. I wasn't a pining, desperate woman. I, checked in and I disappeared. I wasn't interested in him like all the other girls were. So did he come back to seek revenge on me 10 years later to break me? So I feel like too, like they're in constant competition with women.
They
to
hate
break
us.
them.
They absolutely fucking hate us.
To break them, and especially if you outsmart them and you escape, it's like they'll forever have this obsession with one upping you, getting back for you, outsmarting them.
And it might not be right away.
Right.
It's not going to be right away. They're going to wait. And
Oh,
anybody
they
who
could wait
thinks,
18 fucking years, y'all. That's how long he waited and came back to me. 18 years. So you assume that after 18 fucking years, you've done a lot of growing up, right? Like you've probably changed a lot then, right?
No.
You're a different person now, right? You're not all fucked up in the head.
They've manipulated
same
several
old shit.
women.
Mhm.
Well, and not to mention, God forbid, you're in this position like mine where you have their baby.
Mhm.
No.
There is a very, and I've talked about this before, there is a very specific fear that is associated with that, because you don't just get to leave. Like you have their child, and not only are they possessive of you, but they're possessive of their child. And I remember one conversation with him that I had where he goes, she needs you now, but she's not always going to need you, Ashley. And that's when your time is up. And so it's like him letting me know, like, your clock is ticking. Enjoy your life while you have it. Because she won't need you forever. And so like, that's kind of like, it's an intense episode, but that's the thing. Like I want personally, like, and I talk about this in my content, I want women to understand is that you can blame us all you want. And you like, people can say what they said in the comments on our last video, like you really ought to know better and things like that. But the truth is like, we don't always see this shit coming. We never see this shit coming. And the truth is like, all that we can do is bring awareness to these types of things once we've learned and once we are aware, and try and help other women so that they don't find themselves in this position, and like talk about it and have self-awareness and discovering like, fuck, like where do we go from here now? But I mean, I've not yet met a felon that I would, even as much work as they've done, where I'd be like, yeah, you're a good candidate for my next lover.
Well, okay. So I sent you
that's
guys.
the thing. Like they are good candidates for fucking though. And that's why it's so normal for women to be attracted to bad boys, is that then there's science and psychology behind this. Like they have done studies that,
Because you also think you can tame them.
yeah, well, they
You
think you can
tame
say like
them.
women, they have that, but they also have some of it. Like for me, I'll tell you, for me, it was, I have a bad girl about me, right? And so like bad boys or whatever help me kind of express that dark, like rebel side of myself too. And additionally, they present themselves. I was always kind of envious of their ability to not give a fuck. Like something about that to me was like really attractive, and I was kind of jealous of. Like they were it felt like to me from the outside, it was like, God, they look like they feel so free, like, and like whatever. And so there was that was attractive about him. And there was just like this sense of adventure and spontaneity, which is like often mistaken for that when it's actually reckless impulsivity. And like you're gonna fucking die, but like, and it's attractive to people, and so it's normal. Like it's not abnormal for girls to think that's hot. But when it comes down to it, studies have shown that if women are looking at long-term relationship material, they're really not looking at felons. They're not. We're not.
But okay, I sent you guys that Instagram reel of the girl who fell in love and was flexing on fell in love with an inmate. Oh my gosh, it's so great and so cutesy and all the things that they did. And like Ashley said, that is not a flex. And the thing is, this guy in the comment section, everybody's commented, you know, he shot his pregnant girlfriend. He shot his pregnant girlfriend. He's been in prison since he was 18. Now I'm going to say he's probably in his mid 20s, I think. So she's all, you know, oh, we're so in love and love and love. The thing is, he shot his pregnant girlfriend. Why are you totally ignoring that? And the thing is, when it happens to you, you're going to be like, oh, I had no idea. So there are guys that are in for drugs. There are guys that are in for white collar crimes. But when someone is in for shooting his pregnant girlfriend, I don't know how you can justify that to anybody that they're going to be like, he's all right. He's okay.
That's when we have to take a good hard look at ourselves, right? Because we do come with vulnerabilities that these people attach themselves to, like insecurity and low self-esteem and things that, like, there are parts of us that need to be worked on that they will see and attach themselves to so that they can leech off of it and hurt you, right? Because yes, most people would be like, oh, he killed his pregnant girlfriend. I'm not even talking to that piece of shit ever. But there are some women out there that like will ignore that because they are getting the attention of somebody. And so there are some things that like we need to be aware of in ourselves, because I was super vulnerable. I had just gotten divorced when my ex came back into my life. And so there were a lot of things going on with me that was like a perfect storm for him to be able to do what he did. So it's like being aware of their shit and also being aware of what's going on with you in those moments when you think you're establishing a relationship with somebody, that you're being a little, you have that self-awareness. Am I doing that because I'm actually like,
she said she randomly reached out to an inmate. She randomly reached out.
She's what, like 21 maybe?
And he's not that much older. And I'm going to try to put the video in this so you guys can see it, but it's an Instagram. I don't know if I can get it.
I would have been that girl. I totally would have been that girl when I was like 18, 19, 20 years old, like randomly, impulsively, stupidly, blindly going into some dumb shit with some bad boy and ignoring all of everybody around me who was screaming at me like, no, that's bad, don't do it. Like, I was that girl and agreed. Like, it's impulsive, it's stupid, and they come with enough vulnerabilities and low self-esteem that those guys can just suck them in. And it's like a fucking Romeo and Juliet story. They're not hearing that this is dangerous to them. They're trying to keep us apart. They just don't want us to be happy. That's what she's hearing.
Yeah. And you don't understand.
Yeah.
You just don't understand what we have. And he is just a poor, misunderstood guy. His girlfriend, I don't think he killed her because they just said shot. But then no one said.
No, it was in there that he killed her.
He actually killed. Okay.
I don't give a fuck.
Then he's not. No, but the reason I'm saying that is because if he didn't kill her, it'd be like, I'm sure she did something. They're gonna blame the victim because their man is never gonna do that ever.
And he's changed. He has a lot of remorse and regret, I'm sure.
That happened 5 years ago. He's a different person now.
What? Well, I'm curious because Chanel's a spitfire on social media. It is. Listen, you don't hold back, girl. And that's one of my favorite things about it. Like, I watched one of your videos today and I was like,
which one?
There was like 3 that came up because, there's a couple. I saw one of your 4th of July episode where you were just fine as hell and like, but then you show up and you're just like, boom, and you drop like heavy weight on people. So I'm curious, when you hear Heather say that, what is your immediate response to it?
What was her statement? Which statement? I'm sorry.
About how Heather, will you rephrase that just briefly? Just break it down what you just said about
Which
how you
part?
were how you were the girl, and how when they're like, they said like, oh, it was it 5 years ago, because we
Oh,
gas
the pick me.
it.
You mean the pick
They're
me
trying to
woman.
keep us apart. They don't understand.
They don't understand. Like, we
They don't
gaslight
understand.
ourselves. So Chanel, break it down. Come on.
So you're talking about the pick me, right?
Yeah.
That's
Okay.
exactly what it is. I totally would have been a pick me girl in my late teens and early 20s, because I didn't even have a fully formed frontal lobe, for fuck's sake, right? Like, I'm not, like Judge Judy says, you're not even fully fucking cooked, okay? Like, you don't even have a fucking personality. What are you doing? I would have been the girl who would impulsively do some dumb shit, like write a fucking inmate and fall in love with him, and then have a Romeo and Juliet story with him and think it was cool. Like, that would have been my dumb ass. Ask my mother. Like, I would have been that stupid.
So to spin off of Heather, like, I've totally been the pick me. I think we all have in our younger years. There's two types of pick me's. It's the pick me that was a pick me because she didn't know no better, and when she started learning about the shit, she broke out the shit and she said, "Whoa, I don't ever want to go back to being that woman ever again." And then there's the other pick me that loves being a fucking pick me. She loves being a pick me. Well, I guess that's the female narcissist, you know, and they will defend the man, and no matter what he does, if he molests a child, if he does something horrible to a woman, she's going to stick right by him through thick and thin. She's the ride or die. And these types of women, to me, are the carbon copy of their toxic mothers, because the mother is coddling and enabling. So they always want a woman on the side that will degrade herself just to, you know, hold on to him. She needs that validation, and she'll lower her self-esteem to do it. So there's two types of pick me. I've been that pick me girl in my much younger years. When I realized how toxic that shit was and it wasn't getting me anywhere in life, I snapped out of that shit. Because the society has taught us since a very young age that we are to serve men and cater to them, and you're nothing if you're not married. That's society, and that's our family grooming us. And women are like, no, the fuck I don't. No, you know, I'm not doing that pick me shit anymore. But then the other pick me's love the shit. They listen. The man will walk all over them, and they're still right there licking his feet. So
Yeah, and they will
I
be
don't
there
like them.
forever. And when it comes to NPD will have that one that stays. That's always there, no matter what, through thick and thin. He can treat, or she can treat them like trash, and they will still be there, because I am the one that is hung in there. We have a 30-year history now, but it's 29 years of he's treated you like such bad shit.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of them learn this from the way that their mothers were treated by their fathers. See, mine, his parents don't even live in the same house, but they refuse to divorce. They've been married for 40 plus years. Mom's still at home sleeping around with men that are taken. And his dad lives in a whole nother apartment with his girlfriend, yet they're still married and they won't divorce. And he's beaten and cheated on the mother the whole life. So he thinks by repeating what he saw daddy do to mom, and mom is like,
It worked.
Yeah,
It worked for them.
Yeah.
So, but there's women, when they run into women like, no, then they want to try to put their hands on us or try to break us down to become the women like the mother. So I don't like pick-me's.
No, I once dated the man that I was telling you that swept me off his feet. I didn't know at the time that he was married, and that his wife knew that he openly cheated on her all the time. And long story short, I was supposed to just be a fling, and he ended up falling in love with me.
Of course.
And his wife later reached out to me and said to me, listen, the reason I have a problem with you is because I'm the bottom bitch and you're trying to take my spot. And I was like, what
Whoa.
the fuck? I was like, no, honey, like I didn't know, like I'm so sorry. I didn't know he was married. And she was like, I let him do what he does because he always comes home to
Back
me.
to me, yeah.
And he's not allowed to fall in love. He's only allowed to fuck. And she was cool with it. As long as he just comes back to me, like all of you, like, and this was what she said, all of you dumb broads have no clue what's going on, but at the end of the day, he always comes home to me. And I just remember being like, what?
Well, a man is never going to give up his favorite dummy. Let's be clear. He's never
Right.
going to give
His
up
loyal,
his favorite dummy.
his loyal sheepdog that will be there through thick and thin. Yeah.
She's
Through
his favorite
thick and
fool.
thin.
His favorite dummy, Chanel.
But
That's what it is.
the thing is, if you feel like, if any of this rings true, like, oh shit, that could be me, it is, get out. So if anything of this rings true, if any of the guys that you're with or women that you're with are like this, get out. Because honestly, they don't rehab outside of prison. They don't rehab in prison. They don't rehab outside of prison. And with ASPD, NPD, BPD, and HPD, all of the cluster Bs, they don't change. It is their personality. It is who they are and who they will always be. They are not going to have a come to Jesus moment. They are not going to see the light. They are not going to get empathic all of a sudden. It is not possible. I want to scream whenever people say to me, but why are they like that? They'll change. No, the fuck they won't. They are like that. Okay, if you are expecting a cluster B, especially NPD, to suddenly see the light, I liken that to somebody thinking that somebody who is hard of hearing or deaf can hear if we turn the volume up louder. They can't hear still. Turning the volume up louder isn't going to help. Asking them or yelling at them to just listen harder isn't going to make them hear it anymore. So wondering why an NPD isn't being empathic at all, I want to fucking scream when people say to me, but why? Because they're fucking NPD. It is in their DNA. They can't. You're asking them to speak Greek, yeah, or Latin or whatever. They don't know it. They won't do it. So fucking get out of that mindset of if only they would, because they won't. I can tell you right now, they won't at all. Got that out.
People
And
don't
prison
change
is
unless
prison.
it stops working for them.
Yeah, and prison just magnifies. Like, I had to really think about it. Like, by the time they're released, if they've served so much time, like all this time, I said, do you know how much manipulation they learned in there? They had to survive to stay, they had to survive amongst a bunch of criminals. So you have to learn how to out manipulate criminals in order to self-preservation. So by the time he comes out to prison, like, pray for the woman, because it's like the manipulation that's coming her way is from years and years of him learning how to survive amongst a bunch of fucking criminal-minded manipulators. Like,
and I will tell you, they attempt to manipulate everyone and everything about anything. They are pros at it. They will come and sit in front of you and say, with I don't know, I'm gonna say this is a remote. They'll sit with the remote and they go, I don't have a remote in my hand. You don't see it. You're like, I just saw you put it behind your head. No, you didn't. I'm not stupid. They will try to manipulate everything, anything. And the thing is, this is where there's a lot of borderlines in prison, in the mental health system. There's a lot of ASPD, but we don't see them as much in mental health. What we see in mental health is borderline up the wazoo. And these borderlines, I didn't get yard today because yard was canceled. I'm suicidal because I didn't get my yard. No,
that's
you're
how they
not.
meet their needs. And think about
Yeah.
that. Like, think about how ASPD doesn't contact mental health. Think about that. Even when they're in prison, they might even be, they don't have a crisis about who they are, y'all. They
Yeah.
don't have a crisis of emotion. They don't have any
Nope.
fucking.
And they're paranoid. They're paranoid, and they'll always assume
They don't
that you're
trust
manipulating them.
They're gonna be predators before they're gonna be prey. Believe that.
Mhm.
But they're not gonna reach out to fucking mental health. Okay.
Nope.
So if
Nope.
they're not gonna do that in there, they're not gonna do it out here.
I
And they
would go into a building, and the building's kind of like octagon, maybe, I don't know, but there's two sides and a middle, A, B, and C section, and the podium's in the middle where the officers are. And I would be talking to an officer, and let me tell you, every single inmate would be like, you were talking about me. I know you were talking about me. And I'm like, wow, I was talking about 200 guys. No, I was talking about the movie that we just saw the other day, or getting your asses to group on time, or something that unrelated to you. But every single guy thought that everyone was talking about them, plotting against them, gonna be
Paranoia.
about them. Oh yeah. And so they
Paranoia.
were plotting in return.
Yeah.
And the thing is, they're plotting on something that's not even happening. So when everybody's plotting, yeah.
They will project and accuse you of plotting on them and manipulating them all the time.
Yes.
State of paranoia.
Yep. And they will say to you, oh, you're trying to manipulate me, aren't you?
They think everyone else thinks like them. They really do. They really think that everyone else is like them. They don't understand that if they're not like them, they're like, then what's wrong with you? Like if you're
And
not
they
like me.
think like criminals. That's the thing that we tend to forget, because we don't think like criminals, because we're not. But they think like criminals. And one of the things that a criminal thinks is, where's the opportunity here? Let me find the opening. Let me find the opportunity. That's what they're looking for in everything, including talking to you.
Mhm.
So all they do in prison, yes, I'm not going to say a blanket 5 million guys, whatever, are manipulative, but what they learn in prison the most is how to become a more sneaky, manipulative criminal who doesn't get caught, or will eventually maybe violate their parole. But all they're doing is their criminal mind is being used for, how do I make it on the streets now with my criminal mind? So you got to kind of, it's hard, because I worked in prison 13 years, and I'm really, really lucky. I'm going to say I really rarely got duped. I may have once or twice, but I rarely got duped, because I would watch these guys like a hawk. But now that I'm out of prison, I can't say the same, that it will never happen to me on the streets, because just like what Heather was saying, personally versus professionally, two different things.
Yeah.
So it is easy to get duped. A lot of people do, and a lot of people did. But
The easiest way for us to get duped is when we're desperate. Is when we're desperate to be chosen.
Is when we don't have self-love, self-worth, self-value, all of that.
And
That's
fucking boundaries. Big old fucking amazing boundaries.
But you can't have boundaries if you don't love yourself.
If
you cannot be by yourself, if you don't know what you're worth, you don't know what you deserve. Once you know what you're worth, you know you do not deserve to be treated the way that they will treat you.
Mhm.
Right.
Do not say that they will treat me like a queen.
No.
No, they won't.
Well, and the thing is that I learned about myself was the most susceptible I was to toxic men is when I was desperate to be chosen, desperate to be loved, desperate to be, needed, wanted, because I didn't have enough self-worth standing on my own as a woman. And I felt like the only time I was validated and worthy of anything was when I said I had a man by my side. Not to mention, because I was an SA survivor, I was also looking for a man who could protect me, and a felon was a really great protector, even though he protected me from other harmful men. I was also a victim of his.
Yeah,
And
because you
so
were his property.
the best way to protect yourself from toxic men or toxic women is, I can say this just for myself, is by understanding your worth and understanding that you don't need a relationship status in order to hold value. And because that is like the biggest homing beacon for these type of toxic people, is when you're desperate to be chosen, because they know that you'll pick anything and anyone in order just to be set, just to say that you're taken.
Mhm.
So it's very easy to be duped by them.
I think about that Instagram video and she seems like that. See, I got my man. I got my
Yeah.
man.
I'm
If he
the one that
wanted to,
always
he would.
only- Yep.
Yeah, that it did say that too, if he wanted to.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that's the only the only time I ever felt like I had value growing up is just I was useful.
Mhm.
And how perfect. Someone can use me, and who's gonna use me? Fucking criminals. So like I was always the one, like I didn't feel like I was desperate to be in a relationship or desperate to be chosen. Probably a little bit, because I didn't have the greatest self-esteem and self-worth, because all I felt like I was useful for was if I was helping people all the fucking time. Like if I'm not fucking constantly in rescue or savior mode, then I'm not useful to anybody. I'm not worth anything to anybody. That was how I grew up believing. And so these types of men love me because I'm the one that's always going to show up for them and be their fucking dumbass ride or die, because I'm, and so that was how I was always getting stuck in that. I wish we had fucking each other when all of this is going on, like or at least a podcast like this, or at least like other women like us that like were loud about it. And because it just, I felt like it was normal, like relationships like this were just fucking normal, and drama was normal, and chaos was normal, and that's what relationships were. So I have to unlearn still that relationships aren't like this high adrenaline, high excitement drama where I'm in the rescuer role all the time, like that's what I've had to really work on. So if any listeners relate to that, like I'm here for it, because that's where I was.
And not gonna lie, there were some guys in there that were pretty damn attractive. That I would look at and think, wow, if you were out on the street,
fuck.
Yeah.
Yes. I'm like, God damn, but no, that's all you're good for. And even then you probably come with diseases and shit. So go away.
Well, let me tell you, when we went out on every yard, every fence had something on it saying you're about to enter an area with bloodborne pathogens, Hep C, HIV. It was a warning on every yard that we went into, enough so that you kind of go, I don't even know if I want to touch this fence that I'm opening. But yeah.
I'm so glad you said that, because that is so true. It's disgusting. They are riddled with disease. A lot of them.
Oh, I'm gonna say that, and this is probably being pretty conservative, 80% of my caseload at any one time had Hep C. And probably about 70% of those guys had Hep C and HIV. So Hep C is big in prison. I think bigger than HIV, actually.
You want to desensitize yourself to that attraction? Like, just think of
Just
that.
know that.
Think of what she just said. Like, ugh.
Yeah. That's why, and in prison, this sounds really bad, but it's like inmates are not supposed to touch staff at all. And so they'll walk by you and, you know, or kind of out of habit go to touch or whatever, and they're not supposed to touch you. But I know, like, one time an inmate brushed by my coat and I was like, and I got what is it? These, I call them cancer wipes because they have this big warning on it to not use on your personal self because they can cause cancer. And I'm like wiping down my jacket, I'm wiping everything. And so I'm like, oh, because you hear and see their medical record and you don't want that stuff at all. That's why, and they would also, I am not kidding, this is getting a little off topic, but I gotta say this. They would talk to me like, look, doc, I have, and they start showing me their stuff. I had a guy that was starting to take off his shoe and show me his toes. I'm like, nope. I'm working on your brain. I don't need to.
I gotta ask you something real quick, Doc. My ex, he had a horrible case of foot fungus all under his feet and in between his toes. Like, I mean, like, just, it was bad. Like, he needed medication. And I'm wondering, I gotta ask somebody in prison, like, is this normal with the inmates? How did their feet get that fucking bad in
Those
prison?
showers, man, they're just, you gotta have shower
Well, they
shoes
have to
on.
wear shower shoes. Shower shoes. But there were some guys. I have my own issues with our medical department. Our medical department, I'm not going to say nice things about, but I'm not going to say bad things. However, I saw nurses out there that had to cut their toenails for them, that had to, and especially the diabetics had to change their wounds on their feet. And I'm like, this is why I'm a psychologist, doctor, because I'm working on what's in there.
Ellens are getting less and less hot by the second.
Yeah, that will be enough to make you not want to. That I saw, because they would always, for whatever reason, feel like they had to show me what they just went through or what they just did, or when they were having their toenails cut, they're like, Doc, I'm getting my toenails cut. I'm like, okay. Yeah, that they're working in a prison in the state of California in a level 4 is, I dropped, okay, this is gonna sound mean, but I dropped the top of a coffee cup, like one of these things, on the ground, and I picked it up and I washed it off with soap. I wiped it with alcohol. I wiped it with a cancer wipe, which are the kind that say, you know, don't use because they'll cause cancer. And someone said to me, one of my colleagues, they're like, germaphobe, and I'm like, it fell on the floor in a prison. Like, yeah, germaphobe. I had an inmate talk to me, and through his cell doors, I got a little bit of spittle on me. And the whole time he's talking, I'm like, I wasn't even listening anymore. And I ran back, not ran, but I scurried back when we were done to the nurse's office. And I took a literal cancer wipe that you're not supposed to use on you, scrubbed my face, soap and water, alcohol, another cancer wipe. And it was just a little bitty, but yeah. When you see these guys' medical records, condoms, I don't think are even enough.
Well, and let's just talk about this real quick. And then, you know,
Sorry, Chanel.
Chanel, did you see? I saw her just go. The reality of it is, at the end of the day, it's this, at least my problem was that because I was conditioned for chaos, I loved bad boys because everything about them was chaotic, and healthy men were boring.
Yeah.
And so like I had to realize and come to terms with that there was something inside of me that felt like I was needed within the chaotic system. Like it was healing, quote unquote, very, very naive and ignorant, that it was healing to me in order to be needed, in order to be a rescuer, in order to help a man get back up on his feet, for me to be like that superhero, the fixer upper, like, I'm here, baby, I got you, because no one has been there for you. Everyone in your life has abandoned you, and I will never abandon you. I'm here for you. I've got you. I'll be your right, because everyone has abandoned you. And the reality of it was that good men were boring. Good men were like scared. Like, it just wasn't enough. I needed the adventure. I needed the chaos, because I didn't know how to survive in peace.
And you know what else? The fixer in you is because it's easier to fix others than fix
myself. Yes. Because I've talked about, like, I didn't want to face myself. If I'm worrying about your problems, then I don't have to be concerned with mine.
Yes.
Like, everything about you is more important, because I don't need to face my trauma.
Yep.
I don't need to deal with the everything that happened to me. Let's just focus on you. So that was, for me, it was it.
Mhm.
So, and I find
So-
that same with most women.
To everybody out there who feels like, if this resonates at all, I need to fix my man, take a good look at what you're not fixing in you. Because I'm going to place a pretty good bet that there's something.
Mhm.
Go to therapy, get help, learn to love yourself, learn that your self-worth and self-value are far greater than what you're thinking it is right now. And you deserve a hell of a lot more than a man who literally, you're his property.
And he might have herpes.
And HIV
Very
and
likely
Hep
does.
C.
Well, I have this thing in my videos where I say they give out bacterial vaginosis like candy.
They do. Oh my God.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
not just in down there, they give you bacterial vaginosis in
Yeah.
your throat too.
Yep. Yeah.
In all the places.
All the fucking places they stick that shit gets infected.
And stuck it because there's, yeah. Oh,
Mm.
we lost her. There,
Yeah.
you're back.
You just had to have a moment.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
on that note,
On that note, they're all gross and diseased, and stay the fuck away from them.
time to
Let's
wrap
end on
this.
the bacterial vaginosis.
Perfect place to end. So next time when Chanel goes, where did we end? On bacterial vaginosis. So for everybody, please, if you have comments, questions, leave them in the YouTube or wcwycw1@gmail.com or lovingsingle.co/podcast. Click the little bell up in the corner of the YouTube. That'll tell you every time we drop a new episode, which is either once a week or every other week. All depends on how we feel and what we record. And what else? Okay.
Well, it was a pleasure. I fucking loved having you here.
And
yeah.
that's another thing. You guys got to keep what we appreciate. Everybody who subscribes and all the people who said that they were new subscribers because of Spiritual Whistleblower. We love you. And we're letting you know right now that she is going to pop on whenever she wants to. She just has to send a text saying, I want to do a podcast. And we're like, okay.
She's on. She's going to be on as much as we can have her.
My favorite
Send them on
comment.
your way.
My favorite comment was that, like, what did one woman say, that we were like The View?
The View with psychology on psychology.
I was
Yep.
psychology. I was like, with curse word, lots of curse words and drinking.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but there's no competition. It's way better.
Yes.
So,
And on that note, if you guys have any alcohol, any wine suggestions that you want to recommend, any glass suggestions you want to recommend, anything like that, let us know. Like my earrings that say, you know, beware or whatever. I don't even remember what it said anymore, but we're drinking again. Little stuff like that. We always want to hear that. We always want to hear from you guys. But the most important thing is you never know when Spiritual Whistleblower is going to show up. So you got to keep watching.
That's right.
That's the hook right there. You never know. But we appreciate you all, and we appreciate you so much, Chanel. And thank you so much for being here. And again, you're welcome.
Anytime. I will be
Anytime.
back. I will be stopping by quite frequently because there's a lot to talk about with these narcs, and ladies
Yes.
got to raise their discernment. So I'm here for it. Thank you for
I was
having me.
thinking, it was like, I think Steve Martin holds a record for number of guests on SNL. I think he was on like 14 times he hosted or something. So you're our Steve Martin. And for God's sakes, anyone who doesn't know who Steve Martin is because they're too young, I don't like you. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I love everybody. But yeah, Steve Martin was a comedian. I'm not even going to get into it because he's older. Yeah, I just
know
made
who
myself
Steve
feel.
Martin is.
Yeah, but if you're in your 20s, you probably don't. But we still want you to listen. But Google Steve Martin.
Oh my God. Jen.
Okay, Jody. No
I
more
didn't have
booze for you.
Oh my God.
So thank you all.
Wait, any last remarks, Chanel?
That's right.
You know, I'm not saying all felons are bad. I think a small percentage of them are good guys. I actually know there's a guy that I follow on Instagram named Wallow. He did 20 years and he came out and turned his life around. Now he's making, like, he's a millionaire with a major podcast. So he's always giving out gems to men to turn their life around. He holds men accountable, which I really like. But for the most part, ladies, please, you know, if you're considering on dating or dealing with one, please, there's just so much that comes with it. I don't care what he tells you, investigate and don't get caught up. And please just be safe because it's bad out here. Don't be so desperate that you have to resort to settling for that. This man, when he comes out, he's in no position to be in a relationship. I don't care what he tells you. He has a lot of work to do on himself before he can even entertain a woman, and they still entertain, they get out here and they just break and damage woman after woman. We're nothing to them but objects. We're nothing but objects. And when you learn to love yourself, you will not put yourself in a position to be used as an object. That's all I'm gonna say. Thanks for having me, ladies.
Thank you.
Cheers.
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 Cheers.